Welcome back to your Grace, Grit, and Everything in Between podcast. Today we are diving into my 30s, a decade I am calling the bittersweet years. If my 20s were all about freedom to begin with and learning lessons the hard way, my 30s were about facing reality head on. They were full of highs, tough lows, and moments where I had to really figure out who I wanted to be. I wanted to share these years with you honestly, the good, the hard, and everything in between, because I know so many might be walking through your own bittersweet season right now. So I left off in my 20s. Um, I really kind of got up to about 28 because I didn't want to go into anything else that was going to tie into these years because I just wanted to do it all together. So obviously the recap was that I was married. Um, this person moved into my home and it was quite troublesome. That was pretty evident. Lots of kind of red flags. So after we were married, we discussed having a child of our own, and I miscarried that child. Empty sac, no heartbeat, had to go through the process. And my husband at the time then decided that he didn't want children. Um, we booked a holiday to Florida for the four of us, so my two older children and myself and my husband. And then I found out I was pregnant, and my husband left. Um, he was unreachable for a good few days, and to be honest, thinking back now, I wasn't bothered. I kind of brought up the other two. Yeah, okay, I hadn't brought them up brilliantly because I was doing a lot of growing at the time, but my mindset was always, well, if you're going to do everything anyway and you are married, what's the point of being married? So, yes, it was upsetting and it was scary, and I didn't know what was going on, very confused. However, I was very, very happy to be expecting. Um, that pregnancy was hard. Um, I went into labour at 26 weeks. Thankfully, they stopped it. And then I was classed as high risk. And at 34 weeks, they told me that I had chlamydia. So yeah, that was insightful, wondering how that happened. Um, hmm. Oh, I'm just going to leave that there because obviously we know what happened. And I managed to hold that pregnancy until just before 34 weeks. And then I had a very healthy, beautiful boy who brought me so much joy. And I was a different parent. Like 10 years later, I kind of knew all the mistakes that made, and I wanted this to be different. Um, but my marriage still was not perfect. It was far from perfect. Um, and then I found out that I was pregnant with Madison, and that's when my marriage ended. There was no more marital relations. Um, well, he left again after I found out I was pregnant. And only came back after he'd he'd sorted things out in his head, and I will disclose what that was. Um, but I was elated. I could not wait to have another child, and I pretty much knew that that was it. I was going to be doing this on my own now, and it didn't bother me at all. As I say, he did come back with very much ultimatums that the reason why that he left was because it was my house and he didn't feel like things were equal and that we needed to buy a house together. So I put the house up for sale. Thought I'd just do my bit. I begged him so many times that if he was going to leave, not to take my house from me, like not to kind of put me in a situation where I'll be homeless with four children. But he pretty much swore that this was going to make our marriage. And we brought the house that I'm in now. I put down the deposit, I put down all the money to do all the renovations. And basically, I'd had my fourth child, a beautiful, sunshiny girl, who still to this day they both just make me die. They're so good children. Um, and yeah, we had moved in for 3 months, and by the 10th of December, I had told him to leave. I said that I wanted a divorce, that it wasn't working because basically I was still doing everything. I was working two jobs. I was like renovating a house. All the money that I was have like earning was going onto the house, and he never was like never had any money, which is quite ludicrous, really. I paid off his debt several times, and yeah, I had to be, it was one of those divorces though you had to be separated for 2 years, which was fine. I divorced him, even though, apparently I cheated. Apparently, that was the rumor that went around. I divorced him. I paid for the divorce. I was told to take half of his pension and to claim spousal maintenance for the rest of my life or until I'm married. And instead, I just said, I just want the house. That's all I want. House, half the mortgage payments until the youngest is out of education, which she still is at the moment, but that's another story. And that I wanted it to be amicable. Obviously, now, knowing what I know now, I wish I hadn't been. I wish I hadn't been so. And I definitely wish I'd just drawn a line out under it because after he left, and also at the same time, the older two's dad just up and left. Like literally, they were going to him every other weekend, and he upped. So in a space of like a week, both of the father figures just went 2 weeks before Christmas. I'm obviously still working and doing everything that it was just I don't even know. I don't even know how I got through those times, to be honest, but I did. And however, my husband or ex-husband or, separated husband just thought that just because we were separated and getting divorced, that he still had a right to come here whenever he wanted. He still had a right to go on family holidays because that was co-parenting. He still had an element of control, although he didn't actually have the children overnight for the first year after he left. That was something that I had to say to him, look, he was back living with family, and I said, do you not think that maybe you should get a flat of your own so you could actually start having the children to yourself? I think that would be beneficial for all of us. So yeah, March 2010, I got divorced, and that was final. And I decided that I was going to start dating. So I'd been single for 3 years. It was a running joke at my workplace how I was single for so long. So I started seeing someone that fizzled out. Um, and So we were, yeah, about March 2010. So that was 2010. I started seeing someone that kind of by January 2011, that was done. Um, and my ex-husband then kind of weaned his way back in and took my kindness and used it against me, basically. Um, I allowed him to move back into this room because after he had an operation, just because I wanted him to be able to see the children still, and it would benefit all of us. I've always kind of had that whole, well, if you've had an operation, you're not going to be able to see the children. It wouldn't be fair. So if you come here, and I don't even know what I was thinking. I was just being nice. I wasn't with anyone. I wasn't hadn't didn't have any intention of being with anyone, and I just thought it would be the best thing for the children for me for us to do this. So he moved back in, and it took me 18 months to get him to go again. So after he recovered from his op, it really took hard work to get him to go again. And even then, I'm thinking this is a bit weird, like we're not together, but I can't actually move on with anyone because he was just making it very clear that I couldn't. Um, and I hope that you can read in between what I'm saying. Um, but in 2013, a lot of things have happened in November's, I've discovered. And this area, my 30s, I don't really talk about. Like, it's a very confusing period of my life where I wasn't aware that I was being abused and controlled, and I wasn't aware of everything that was going on behind me, kind of thing. I'm not going to say that we never tried. We did try again, but it was very evident that it was done, um, especially when he was seeing people that he was working with. So, in November 2013, I went to visit a chiropractor. And up until that time, like I'd had nights out, I've had girly holidays, I'd been to New York with the girls, I'd been to New York with the other guy, I'd been to Morocco, I'd literally had, some fun. There was an element of fun where I could literally just escape. So it couldn't have been that bad. I know that you're probably thinking it couldn't have been that bad, but I think you're getting the pattern now that it literally from the age of 70, it's just been bam, bam, bam. And I'm not saying that I haven't made the choices and decisions because I have, but I'm just hopefully you can understand that always just wanted to be loved. That's it. I just wanted to be happy, just wanted to be loved, just wanted a peaceful life. And it wasn't like that. So when I went and visited this chiropractor, basically the lead up to visiting that chiropractor was I was having a massage every few weeks. I didn't know I had a fibro then. I'd been having massages for years on my shoulders because that's where I hold a lot of my tension, my stress. And she suggested I go and see a chiropractor. I go to see a chiropractor. He does not x-ray me. He manipulates my neck 5 times. That's like literally 5 times. And that evening, 3 o'clock in the morning, I woke up in excruciating pain because if he had taken an x-ray, he would have seen that my vertebrae in my neck had fused together from years of being a waitress and doing bar work and like literally your spine grows to accommodate the occupation and the thing you do. Like it spurs off. So mine is fused together. There wasn't a normal S shape in my spine. It literally was dead straight because of the times I was lifting trays and things like that. So my spine had fused together in my neck to give me more strength. And I was very, very slim, like very, very slim. So I was very toned, very slim, and I suppose that's the way my body just dealt with how much I was lifting. And it was wall at one side. I used to, even though I'm right-handed, I used to lift with my left hand. So I weren't really doing myself any favors looking back. So I went to this chiropractor. He did that. He fractured my vertebrae, impinging nerves, a lot of nerves. Um, and when I went to A&E, they actually thought that I'd broken my shoulder. Like, yeah, the how much pain I was in, they gave me a concoction of five pain medication and the pain was still there. I had to wait like a week for an MRI, and that's where they kind of just they took x-rays and stuff and found what had happened. And I did the normal, I couldn't do the job that I had started working in accountancy. I loved, I had worked really hard and studied to become a qualified bookkeeper and accountant, and do payroll and things. I went into a job and I really loved it. And unfortunately, every time I sat down for a long period of time, my arms went numb. So after being off sick from there, and I did have another job in a restaurant where I had to give up the waitressing because I couldn't lift anything, but I was okay to kind of host and seat people. Um, so yeah, I had to walk away from that job, which upset me a lot. But I was very grateful that I could still work in the restaurant industry. Um, and I carried on working in that restaurant industry, crying every day because I was in that much pain. I'd started hosting students at home as well. I started becoming a guardian, which I've just started doing again now, for boarding students, which means I'm their point of call because obviously their parents are not in this country. Um, and I did what it took to pay the bills. Um, However, in all of that, my ex-husband moved himself back in. He asked first, and I said no. And then he moved back in, denied that he'd moved back in, even though all of his stuff was here. Um, Bizarre behavior, like crazy behavior. Um, Run up, even though he was got a well-paid job, run up a lot of debt. Because even though he'd moved himself back in, he hadn't moved himself back in, of course, like although he had. So because he hadn't, it didn't mean that he had to pay for anything, only what he was already paying me for maintenance and half the mortgage. Um, and the maintenance back then was what he stated. It wasn't through child maintenance or anything like that. And so yeah, the debts run up and I ended up in quite a lot of debt. Um, and it was hard. It was it was just so hard. There was no life. It was just, to be honest, I think I was kept medicated. I know that he was telling people that I couldn't do anything, that he had to be there to take care of the children because all I did was sleep all day because of the concoction of medication that I was on. And basically, that's how I lived for 4 years, which ended my 30s, really. Took me to like 40. Um, for my 40th, and I will kind of share this, like I wanted to go to New York for my 40th with the children, and he had convinced me that he should go too because I wouldn't be able to do it on my own because of all my disabilities, because, yeah, a very, very sad time, although that is the sad part of it. The happy part of my 30s was being with my younger two children all the time. So from 2013, sorry, like November 2013, like literally, they were 6 and 7, and they do not remember a me that was a workaholic, that worked all the time, that worked to get away from arguments at home and things like that. They are the best version of me. They are all me. Um, and the joy, like there is so many photos that we took. We baked so much. Um, so I couldn't have been that bad. I was still working, or if I weren't working, I was sleeping. Um, I didn't leave the house. When it first happened, I didn't leave the house for 7 months because there was no need to, because everything was done for me. Like, but I was too ill to do it for myself. And well, I probably know that's what kept me for so long. When I look back now and think 4 years, 4 years, I just literally existed. You know, in the December 2013, I still cooked for 17 people. So I knew that I was able to do these things. And it was it was very confusing because I was enjoying the time with my youngest two. We were having so much fun. But then when he was here, it was just so sad. It wasn't anything. Um, and it was just a lot of mind games and a lot of mental abuse and a lot of emotional abuse and a lot of gaslighting. And he alienated me from so many people, even my family at one point. So yeah, that pretty much takes us up to 40, um, which would be 2016. It's surreal to think that I haven't actually really sat down and done that timeline before now. And the thought of doing this episode has had me having nightmares. Like, I get PTSD nightmares quite a lot, but the nightmares that I've had the last week from the last episode I did. But thankfully, I know now that I can close the door on that, that I don't need to kind of go into it or delve into it anymore. It is what it is. It happened. And yeah. So let me explain a little bit about the friendships I had. I say I went on holiday with girls, like they were work colleagues. They were people that I went on. As I said in previous, I've not really ever had any friends. I've always been a loner. I've always been best on my own. I self-soothe. I'm never one to really ask for help. So the holidays I on were more with work colleagues. But those memories of that, that was the kind of inkling of, do you know what, this is a taste of what life could be. So I'm very, very grateful for those. What do I feel proud of in this decade? The younger children, having those children, and the, you know, the joy, just the joy. Um, so much happiness that they brought into my life. And I truly believe like that obviously everything happens for a reason. Like that is me. That's what I named my business. If our beauty, if our mindset is another branch of that, everything happens for a reason. And I cannot imagine my life without any of my children. Um, they like the fact being like, and I am so proud of all of my children. Like they are all adults now. They're making their own choices, their own decisions, and yeah, it's hard to watch, but you know, it's I couldn't have done that bad of a job. That's all I'm thinking. Um, I would say that I am proud of myself for not having another breakdown when literally, I just adapted it with by very, very well. The weight gain hadn't started by then, so I was still relatively thin. Honestly, if I'd started gaining the weight in my 30s, I think I would have not survived without another breakdown. Um, I think the children definitely got me through. Um, Resilience. Let me tell you a little bit about resilience. Resilience with me, and it has always been with me, that I feel like my whole world's come crushing down on me, and then I have a real good cry, and then I usually on the floor, and then I get back up, wipe my snotty face, and I make a plan, and that's it. Like I get on with it. There, I didn't want another breakdown because obviously I had one in my 20s and I don't remember 6 months of my life with my children. I don't want that to happen, didn't want that to happen again. Um, but one thing I know, like I'm pretty strong now. I would say that everything that could happen has happened. Um, But obviously there is other things that other people go through. But I just feel like it's been a long battle. I didn't share last week, but I lost my nan when I was 20. I think that stemmed to the breakdown as well because she used to come round every Friday. There used to be a market over the road, and she used to come round and bring biscuits for the children because they're not allowed sweets, so they can have biscuits. Um, And I remember when she'd had her stroke and she looked straight in my eyes at 20 and said, Why, why has this happened to me? I didn't grieve losing my nan until my 30s. I just kept telling myself that they were still, living where they were. Um, I lost my granddad just before my 30s. And they were such a pinnacle part of my childhood and the reason why I have so much love in me, like love to give. Um, I think because my own parents didn't pick up the pieces when I was breaking, that they did until I was 20, made a massive impact to my life. Um, and also the fact being that my mum and dad didn't come running and fix me and made me extremely resilient and self-soothe and just deal with it. I was so used to saying to family like I'm not coping and them telling me they had no idea what they could do. And that was the kind of that's what I would get. I would get just nothing. So it kind of taught me not to reach out to anyone and not to expect help and not to do the things that, most parents are there for. What I like to think I'm there for my children. I don't want them to make mistakes and silly choices and bad decisions that need me to come and save them. but I will save them because that's who I am. Um, I made some really silly mistakes. I think that's pretty evident. Um, and the fact being that I had no one for a lot of the time. Like I literally just had my children. That's it. I poured into them. And I think that probably has impacted the older two more than the younger two. But yeah, I'm resilient because I didn't have anyone. I just had me. Um, so 30s. I would I would say that your 30s are where you're allowed to make mistakes, providing that you get back up, providing that you know that it's a lesson, providing that you can change your mind. 30s were hard, 20s were hard, my 40s have been hard. Um, and it's hard to see the positive in my 20s and my 30s because they were so tarnished by so much stuff. So much stuff that not people like you wouldn't normally deal with. Yes, I do wish that after I had thrown my ex-husband out, that I had never, ever, ever communicated with him again. I wish that because I think I would have regained my freedom and I would have healed and I wouldn't have been abused to the extent that he abused me after the divorce during the marriage. Um, I wish, do you know what? I wish I was as strong as I am now back then. Like, I really wish that I was strong, but I really wish that I just had the strength that I have now, and the knowledge and the wisdom. And I was wise. But yeah, I just if I was going to go back and tell my 30-year-old, I would basically say, don't get married. Hard to say that when you've got two amazing children. But if there's red flags, please walk away. Because those red flags will just get louder and louder and louder. And you know, you can't you can't cover up something that's not meant to be. That's something I've known. Like the universe will keep giving you signs until you pay attention, and they will keep sending you the same signs until you pay attention. And yeah, it's it's a tough time. And I'd like to say that next time you're going to hear some happiness, but you're not. Because it was hard. It has been hard. The last 9 years have been hard. But my children have helped me more than they would probably ever really realize. Um, so let's wrap up. So my 30s were truly bittersweet, a mix of highs and some of the hardest lessons I've had to learn. Looking back, I can see how those years pushed me, stretched me, and ultimately gave me the wisdom to step into my 40s with more self-awareness, confidence, and gratitude. If you're in your 30s right now and it feels messy and complicated or confusing, know that you're not alone. These years are shaping you in ways you might not even realize yet. In the next episode, I'll be sharing what life looks like in my 40s and how everything I've been through has brought me to where I am today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of this journey with me. And as always, remember you are enough and you really can do anything that you want. And you need help, you know where I am. Have a great week. Thanks for watching.